So what makes our adolescents vulnerable? We talked about low self-esteem. If adolescent is already at a place, even before the impact of social media, if they're at a place where their self-esteem may already be low, a lot of factors contend with this. They may not have, like the young lady at the end that talked about how her mom was telling her not to listen to these things, that she is beautiful. They may not have someone in their life being able to speak that positivity into them. That's part of our developmental process, is when we are younger, and it talks about this in attachment theory. When we are younger, one of the challenges is that we look to external validation. We look to our parents, our loved ones, to be able to help us mirror back to us our worth, our value. We haven't gotten to that place yet developmentally where we can do that on our own. So that concept in of itself makes adolescents very vulnerable, because by development, by design, that's one of the things we're doing. We're looking externally for that validation. If we don't have parents, loved ones, teachers, therapists, big brothers, big sisters, all of this community support that we could capitalize on to be able to speak that back to them, they could have low self-esteem, and then they're going on social media and they're already starting at a deficit. So when someone says something, and I'm just using this as an example, because this was one of the big beauty crazes that was out a couple of years ago that you all might remember. But I don't know, and it sounds really bizarre, the thigh gap beauty craze. There was this thing that, young girls were posting pictures, and if their thighs didn't meet, they met the challenge. But if their thighs met at the top, then they were seen as, overweight or undesirable or not attractive. Or so somebody that is coming in with low self-esteem and they're hit with a challenge like that on social media, and they're already comparing themselves. Well, my thighs meet, their thighs don't. What does that say about me? Okay, so we talked about the desire for validation, how on the attachment developmental level, this is actually appropriate that adolescents are seeking external validation. They haven't, as Erickson said, they haven't gotten to that place yet developmentally where they're able to separate from their parents and determine who they are and all of that. So they're looking for that validation. And if they don't have parents, sisters, uncles, aunties, teachers, any mentors, people that are in their community to provide that to them outside of social media, they're going to want to get it from social media. And they're going to do things, maybe not necessarily post the best pictures, or pictures that, might not be, I'll just say pictures that are attention seeking, and leave it at that. They're more impacted by the negative comments because they need that validation. So lack of emotional resilience. Teens who are struggling to cope with their own emotional challenges that are just part of our day-to-day life might find it more difficult to handle cyberbullying, that criticism, those negative interactions on social media. Social isolation. Teens that already feel isolated might become overly dependent on their online interactions. And when they don't necessarily get that those interactions back, or the more that they're on social media, they're increasing the likelihood that they're going to run across some negative aspects of social media. That is also a challenge. We talked about the body image concerns and the unrealistic beauty standards that are portrayed. Impulsivity. So teens who have issues with impulsive behavior may engage more in risky online activities, may share personal information without necessarily thinking about the consequences of what that could mean for them. We talked about the fear of missing out. This is a big one. Making sure you guys remember that one. Limited digital literacy. Not all teens are as exposed to social media, as exposed to technology, depending on the digital parenting style. We'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides down the line. But if a kid has limited digital literacy, they may not be able to critically evaluate what they see online. They may believe everything that they see is true. They may internalize a lot of the misleading information that they see. So it's important to make sure, they're being exposed to knowing that not everything that they see online is true. And because adolescents, like I said, they live their lives online first, offline second, the truth lies online. So being able as a clinician to be able to guide them or guide the parents of our clients with some of this information. Pre-existing mental health issues, of course, they're already struggling with, like we said, anxiety, depression. Social media could make that even worse when they're dealing with triggers from negative comments or the lack of response. That's also something that we have to consider. When they need that or want that external validation, they post this picture and they've spent all of this time curating this image. They want like this flood of likes. They want a flood of comments. They want all of this validation, and they get like one like, one heart. That can be devastating to them. So being mindful of that as well. And we talked about the unhealthy comparison to the highlight reel. Okay. What are the traits? What are some of the aspects of our adolescents that can make them more vulnerable? Talked about depression, low self-esteem, poor school performance. Poor school performance. I'm going to leave that question in the chat. Does anybody want to respond? Why do we look at poor school performance as a possible trait that could make an adolescent vulnerable to the negative impact of social media? All right, ding, ding. I think I saw somebody respond. Okay, let's see here. Okay, they were like getting attention, external validation, getting a sense of purpose. Okay. All right, validation. Okay. Absolutely, sense of purpose, validation. Poor performance can affect absolutely. Self-esteem gives them a place to feel better. If they're doing poorly in school, good guys, they would or could get exactly, John, inclusion or validation or acceptance in social media. They don't do well academically and are looking for another way to shine. Good guys, okay, I see y'all. Okay, good answers, absolutely. Validation. They're looking for inclusion. A A versus a C. Also, too, one of the concepts that we have to be aware of as clinicians is that the internet follows our kids everywhere they go. Back in the day, when we were dealing with not cyberbullying, when we were dealing with bullying, it happened at the playground or maybe on the way home from school. Okay. But once you got home, you were kind of in your safe space. You were kind of in your bubble. You got to get a break from the bully. Normally, the bully wasn't knocking on your front door to continue bullying you. That is very different in the age of social media. Bullying follows our kids 24/7. So, for example, if somebody is having poor performance at school, their kids in their class that know that they're struggling, they're calling them bad names and stuff in class, and then they take it to social media so that adolescent is not only dealing with that at school, but now they come home and they're dealing with it at home. So technology and 24-hour access does not give our adolescents a break from this. And that is why a lot of times for adolescents that do end up harming themselves or taking their life because they feel like there's no escape from it. The technology is everywhere. So something to be very mindful of. They're 3 times more likely to be female. Females do utilize social media a little more than males. So because they have a little increased amount of time that they're spending, of course, the statistics will tell us that they're increased in meeting negative responses, comments, the whole beauty standards, all of that is impacted. Vulnerable groups include minorities, different abilities, LGBTQ. So being mindful that adolescents that are seen as quote unquote, I use this, don't use this lightly, but seen as being different in any way can become a target. for their difference. Their difference becomes the subject of the bullying or the subject of the negative comments. Isolation and seeking to belong just puts them at a place where, once again, they're spending more time. And then cyber suicide. Cyber suicide is the phenomena that happens with particular challenges, particular posts that encourages someone to self-harm. So a few years back, there was this challenge called the Blue Whale Challenge. And that challenge consisted of 50 tasks in 50 days. And it started with, more benign activities like stay up late past your bedtime or come in late after curfew. And each day, the tasks increased in the level of risk. So you went from staying out past curfew or staying up late at night to watching a scary movie, and maybe from watching a scary movie to standing on the ledge of a tall brick wall. Or so each day you would get a task that was more and more risky until you got one of the big ones was carving a whale, the shape of a whale in your arm. And each task would get you closer and closer to increased level of self-harm and to dying by suicide. So being very aware of cyber suicide, some of the challenges that are out there on social media. One of the things that I encourage all clinicians to do is get those Google notifications, set up your account. It's hard to stay on top of these things, but setting up your account so that you let technology do the work for you. You're getting notifications of challenges that are coming out, issues that are coming out with social media, so you're more in the know. Because this is, like I said, this is our clients' lives.